Chapter 21. Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David, and Jehoram his son reigned in his place. He had brothers, the sons of Jehoshaphat, Azariah, and Jehiel, and Zechariah, and Azariah, and Mikael, and Shephatiah. All these were the sons of Jehoshaphat king of Israel. Their father gave them great gifts of silver and of gold and of precious things, with fortified cities in Judah. But the kingdom he gave to Jehoram, because he was the firstborn. Now when Jehoram was risen up over the kingdom of his father, and had strengthened himself, he killed all his brothers with the sword, and various also of the princes of Israel. Jehoram was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. He walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, as did the house of Ahab, for he had the daughter of Ahab as a wife, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. However, the Lord would not destroy the house of David, because of the covenant that he had made with David, and as he promised to give a lamp to him and to his children always. In his days Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah, and made a king over themselves. Then Jehoram passed over with his captains, and all his chariots with him, and he rose up by night, and struck the Edomites who surrounded him, along with the captains of the chariots. So Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah to this day. Then did Libnah revolt at the same time from under his hand, because he had forsaken the Lord, the God of his fathers. Moreover, he made high places in the mountains of Judah, and made the inhabitants of Jerusalem to play the prostitute, and led Judah astray. There came a writing to him from Elijah the prophet, saying, Thus says the Lord, the God of David your father, Because you have not walked in the ways of Jehoshaphat your father, nor in the ways of Asa king of Judah, but have walked in the way of the kings of Israel, and have made Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to play the prostitute, like as the house of Ahab did, and also have slain your brothers of your father's house, who were better than yourself. Behold, the Lord will strike with a great plague your people, and your children, and your wives, and all your substance, and you shall have great sickness by disease of your bowels, until your bowels fall out by reason of the sickness, day by day. The Lord stirred up against Jehoram the spirit of the Philistines, and of the Arabians who are beside the Ethiopians, and they came up against Judah, and broke into it, and carried away all the substance that was found in the king's house, and his sons also, and his wives, so that there was never a son left to him save Jehoahaz, the youngest of his sons. After all this, the Lord struck him in his bowels with an incurable disease. It happened in the process of time, at the end of 2 years, that his bowels fell out by reason of his sickness, and he died of sore diseases. His people made no burning for him like the burning of his fathers. 32 years old he was when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years, and he departed without being desired, and they buried him in the city of David, but not in the tombs of the kings. Chapter 22. The inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah his youngest son king in his place, for the band of men who came with the Arabians to the camp had slain all the eldest. So Ahaziah the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, reigned. 42 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri. He also walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother was his counselor to do wickedly. He did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, as did the house of Ahab, for they were his counselors after the death of his father, to his destruction. He walked also after their counsel, and went with Jehoram the son of Ahab, king of Israel, to war against Hazael king of Syria at Ramoth Gilead, and the Syrians wounded Joram. He returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which they had given him at Ramah, when he fought against Hazael king of Syria. Azariah, the son of Jehoram king of Judah, went down to see Jehoram the son of Ahab in Jezreel, because he was sick. Now the destruction of Ahaziah was of God, in that he went to Joram, for when he was come, he went out with Jehoram against Jehu the son of Nimshi, whom the Lord had anointed to cut off the house of Ahab. It happened, when Jehu was executing judgment on the house of Ahab, that he found the princes of Judah and the sons of the brothers of Ahaziah ministering to Ahaziah, and killed them. He sought Ahaziah, and they caught him. Now he was hiding in Samaria. And they brought him to Jehu and killed him, and they buried him, for they said, He is the son of Jehoshaphat, who sought the Lord with all his heart. The house of Ahaziah had no power to hold the kingdom. Now when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the royal seed of the house of Judah. But Jehoshabeth, the daughter of the king, took Joash the son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the king's sons who were slain, and put him and his nurse in the bedchamber. So Jehoshabeth, the daughter of King Jehoram, the wife of Jehoiada the priest, for she was the sister of Ahaziah, hid him from Athaliah, so that she didn't kill him. He was with them hid in the house of God 6 years, and Athaliah reigned over the land. Chapter 23. In the 7th year Jehoiada strengthened himself, and took the captains of hundreds, Azariah the son of Jeroram, and Ishmael the son of Johanan, and Azariah the son of Obed, and Maaseiah the son of Adiah, and Elishaphat the son of Zichri, into covenant with him. They went about in Judah, and gathered the Levites out of all the cities of Judah, and the heads of the fathers' houses of Israel, and they came to Jerusalem. All the assembly made a covenant with the king in the house of God. He said to them, Behold, the king's son shall reign, as the Lord has spoken concerning the sons of David. This is the thing that you shall do. A third part of you, who come in on the Sabbath, of the priests and of the Levites, shall be porters of the thresholds, and a third part shall be at the king's house, and a third part at the gate of the foundation, and all the people shall be in the courts of the house of the Lord. But let none come into the house of the Lord, except the priests, and those who minister of the Levites, they shall come in, for they are holy, but all the people shall keep the charge of the Lord. The Levites shall compass the king round about, every man with his weapons in his hand, and whoever comes into the house, let him be slain, and you be with the king when he comes in and when he goes out. So the Levites and all Judah did according to all that Jehoiada the priest commanded, and they took every man his men, those who were come in on the Sabbath, with those who were to go out on the Sabbath, for Jehoiada the priest didn't dismiss the shift. Jehoiada the priest delivered to the captains of hundreds the spears, the bucklers and shields that had been King David's, which were in the house of God. He set all the people, every man with his weapon in his hand, from the right side of the house to the left side of the house, along by the altar and the house, by the king round about. Then they brought out the king's son, and put the crown on him, and gave him the testimony, and made him king. And Jehoiada and his sons anointed him, and they said, Long live the king. When Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and praising the king, she came to the people in the house of the Lord, and she looked, and behold, the king stood by his pillar at the entrance, and the captains and the trumpets by the king, and all the people of the land rejoiced and blew trumpets. The singers also played on instruments of music, and led the singing of praise. Then Athaliah tore her clothes and said, Treason! Treason! Jehoiada the priest brought out the captains of hundreds who were set over the host, and said to them, Bring her forth between the ranks, and whoever follows her, let him be slain with the sword. For the priest said, Don't kill her in the house of the Lord. So they made way for her, and she went to the entrance of the horse gate to the king's house, and they killed her there. Jehoiada made a covenant between himself and all the people and the king, that they should be the Lord's people. All the people went to the house of Baal and broke it down, and broke his altars and his images in pieces, and killed Mattan the priest of Baal before the altars. Jehoiada appointed the officers of the house of the Lord under the hand of the priests the Levites, whom David had distributed in the house of the Lord, to offer burnt offerings of the Lord, as it is written in the law of Moses, with rejoicing and with singing, according to the order of David. He set the porters at the gates of the house of the Lord, that no one who was unclean in anything should enter in. He took the captains of hundreds, and the nobles, and the governors of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought down the king from the house of the Lord. And they came through the upper gate to the king's house, and set the king on the throne of the kingdom. So all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet. Athaliah they had slain with the sword. Chapter 24. Joash was 7 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Zibiah of Beersheba. Joash did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord all the days of Jehoiada the priest. Jehoiada took for him 2 wives, and he became the father of sons and daughters. It happened after this that Joash was minded to restore the house of the Lord. He gathered together the priests and the Levites, and said to them, "Go out to the cities of Judah, and gather of all Israel money to repair the house of your God from year to year, and see that you hurry in the matter." However, the Levites didn't hurry. The king called for Jehoiada the chief, and said to him, "Why haven't you required of the Levites to bring in out of Judah and out of Jerusalem the tax of Moses the servant of the Lord, and of the assembly of Israel for the tent of the testimony?" For the sons of Athaliah, that wicked woman, had broken up the house of God, and also all the dedicated things of the house of the Lord did they bestow on the Baals. So the king commanded, and they made a chest, and set it outside at the gate of the house of the Lord. They made a proclamation throughout Judah and Jerusalem to bring in for the Lord the tax that Moses the servant of God laid on Israel in the wilderness. All the princes and all the people rejoiced and brought in, and cast into the chest, until they had made an end. It was so that whenever the chest was brought into the king's officers by the hands of the Levites, and when they saw that there was much money, the king's scribe and the chief priest officer came and emptied the chest, and took it, and carried it to its place again. This they did day by day, and gathered money in abundance. The king and Jehoiada gave it to such as did the work of the service of the house of the Lord, and they hired masons and carpenters to restore the house of the Lord, and also such as worked iron and brass to repair the house of the Lord. So the workmen worked, and the work of repairing went forward in their hands, and they set up the house of God in its state, and strengthened it. When they had made an end, they brought the rest of the money before the king and Jehoiada, of which were made vessels for the house of the Lord, even vessels with which to minister and to offer, and spoons, and vessels of gold and silver. They offered burnt offerings in the house of the Lord continually all the days of Jehoiada. But Jehoiada grew old and was full of days, and he died. 130 years old was he when he died. They buried him in the city of David among the kings, because he had done good in Israel, and toward God in his house. Now after the death of Jehoiada, the princes of Judah came, and made homage to the king. Then the king listened to them. They forsook the house of the Lord, the God of their fathers, and served the Asherim and the idols. And wrath came on Judah and Jerusalem for this their guiltiness. Yet he sent prophets to them, to bring them again to the Lord, and they testified against them, but they would not listen. The Spirit of God came on Zechariah the son of Jehoiada the priest, and he stood above the people and said to them, "Thus says God, why disobey the commandments of the Lord, so that you can't prosper? Because you have forsaken the Lord, he has also forsaken you." They conspired against him, and stoned him with stones at the commandment of the king in the court of the house of the Lord. Thus Joash the king didn't remember the kindness which Jehoiada his father had done to him, but killed his son. When he died, he said, "The Lord look on it and require it." It happened at the end of the year that the army of the Syrians came up against him, and they came to Judah and Jerusalem, and destroyed all the princes of the people from among the people, and sent all the spoil of them to the king of Damascus. For the army of the Syrians came with a small company of men, and the Lord delivered a very great host into their hand, because they had forsaken the Lord, the God of their fathers. So they executed judgment on Joash. When they were departed from him, for they left him very sick, his own servants conspired against him for the blood of the sons of Jehoiada the priest, and killed him on his bed, and he died, and they buried him in the city of David, but they didn't bury him in the tombs of the kings. These are those who conspired against him: Zabad the son of Shemath the Ammonitess, and Jehozabad the son of Shimrith the Moabitess. Now concerning his sons, and the greatness of the burdens laid on him, and the rebuilding of the house of God, behold, they are written in the commentary of the book of the kings. Amaziah his son reigned in his place. Chapter 25. Amaziah was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jehoaddan of Jerusalem. He did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, but not with a perfect heart. Now it happened, when the kingdom was established to him, that he killed his servants who had killed the king his father. But he didn't put their children to death, but did according to that which is written in the law of the book of Moses, as the Lord commanded, saying, The fathers shall not die for the children, neither shall the children die for the fathers, but every man shall die for his own sin. Moreover, Amaziah gathered Judah together, and ordered them according to their fathers' houses, under captains of thousands and captains of hundreds, even all Judah and Benjamin. And he numbered them from 20 years old and upward, and found them 300,000 chosen men, able to go forth to war, who could handle spear and shield. He hired also 100,000 mighty men of valor out of Israel for 100 talents of silver. But there came a man of God to him, saying, O king, don't let the army of Israel go with you, for the Lord is not with Israel, even with all the children of Ephraim. But if you will go, do valiantly, be strong for the battle. God will cast you down before the enemy, for God has power to help and to cast down. Amaziah said to the man of God, But what shall we do for the 100 talents which I have given to the army of Israel? The man of God answered, The Lord is able to give you much more than this. Then Amaziah separated them, even the army that had come to him out of Ephraim, to go home again. Therefore their anger was greatly kindled against Judah, and they returned home in fierce anger. Amaziah took courage, and led forth his people, and went into the valley of Salt, and struck of the children of Seir 10,000, and another 10,000 did the children of Judah carry away alive, and brought them to the top of the rock, and cast them down from the top of the rock, so that they were all broken in pieces. But the men of the army whom Amaziah sent back, that they should not go with him to battle, fell on the cities of Judah, from Samaria even to Beth-horon, and struck of them 3,000, and took much spoil. Now it happened, after that Amaziah was come from the slaughter of the Edomites, that he brought the gods of the children of Seir, and set them up to be his gods, and bowed down himself before them, and burned incense to them. Therefore the anger of the Lord was kindled against Amaziah, and he sent to him a prophet, who said to him, Why have you sought after the gods of the people, which have not delivered their own people out of your hand? It happened, as he talked with him, that the king said to him, Have we made you the king's counsel? Stop! Why should you be struck down? Then the prophet stopped and said, I know that God has determined to destroy you, because you have done this, and have not listened to my counsel. Then Amaziah king of Judah took advice, and sent to Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, king of Israel, saying, Come, let us look one another in the face. Joash king of Israel sent to Amaziah king of Judah, saying, The thistle that was in Lebanon sent to the cedar that was in Lebanon, saying, Give your daughter to my son as a wife. And there passed by a wild animal that was in Lebanon, and trod down the thistle. You say, Behold, you have struck Edom, and your heart lifts you up to boast. Abide now at home. Why should you meddle to your hurt, that you should fall, even you and Judah with you? But Amaziah would not hear, for it was of God, that he might deliver them into the hand of their enemies, because they had sought after the gods of Edom. So Joash king of Israel went up, and he and Amaziah king of Judah looked one another in the face at Beth-shemesh, which belongs to Judah. Judah was put to the worst before Israel, and they fled every man to his tent. Joash king of Israel took Amaziah king of Judah, the son of Joash the son of Jehoahaz, at Bethshemesh, and brought him to Jerusalem, and broke down the wall of Jerusalem from the gate of Ephraim to the corner gate, 400 cubits. He took all the gold and silver, and all the vessels that were found in the house of God with Obed-Edom, and the treasures of the king's house, the hostages also, and returned to Samaria. Amaziah, the son of Joash, king of Judah, lived after the death of Joash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel, 15 years. Now the rest of the acts of Amaziah, first and last, behold, aren't they written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel? Now from the time that Amaziah did turn away from following the Lord, they made a conspiracy against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish, but they sent after him to Lachish and killed him there. They brought him on horses, and buried him with his fathers in the city of Judah. Chapter 26. All the people of Judah took Uzziah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in the room of his father Amaziah. He built Eloth, and restored it to Judah. After that the king slept with his fathers. Uzziah was 16 years old, and he began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jechiliah of Jerusalem. He did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, according to all that his father Amaziah had done. He set himself to seek God in the days of Zechariah, who had understanding in the vision of God, and as long as he sought the Lord, God made him to prosper. He went forth and warred against the Philistines, and broke down the wall of Gath, and the wall of Jabneh, and the wall of Ashdod, and he built cities in the country of Ashdod and among the Philistines. God helped him against the Philistines, and against the Arabians who lived in Gur-baal, and the Meonim. The Ammonites gave tribute to Uzziah, and his name spread abroad even to the entrance of Egypt, for he grew exceedingly strong. Moreover, Uzziah built towers in Jerusalem at the corner gate, and at the valley gate, and at the turning of the wall, and he fortified them. He built towers in the wilderness, and hewed out many cisterns, for he had much cattle, in the lowlands also and in the plain, and he had farmers and vineyard keepers in the mountains, and in the fruitful fields, for he loved farming. Moreover, Uzziah had an army of fighting men, who went out to war by bands, according to the number of their reckoning made by Jeiel the scribe, and Maaseiah the officer, under the hand of Hananiah one of the king's captains. The whole number of the heads of the fathers' houses, even the mighty men of valor, was 2,600. Under their hand was an army, 375,000, who made war with mighty power, to help the king against the enemy. Uzziah prepared for them, even for all the host, shields and spears and helmets and coats of mail and bows and stones for slinging. He made in Jerusalem engines, invented by skillful men, to be on the towers and on the battlements, with which to shoot arrows and great stones. His name spread far abroad, for he was marvelously helped, until he was strong. But when he was strong, his heart was lifted up, so that he did corruptly, and he trespassed against the Lord his God, for he went into the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. Azariah the priest went in after him, and with him 80 priests of the Lord who were valiant men, and they withstood Uzziah the king, and said to him, It pertains not to you, Uzziah, to burn incense to the Lord, but to the priests, the sons of Aaron, who are consecrated to burn incense. Go out of the sanctuary, for you have trespassed, neither shall it be for your honor from the Lord God. Then Uzziah was angry, and he had a censer in his hand to burn incense. And while he was angry with the priest, the leprosy broke forth in his forehead before the priest in the house of the Lord, beside the altar of incense. Azariah the chief priest, and all the priests looked on him, and behold, he was leprous in his forehead. And they thrust him out quickly from there. Yes, he himself hurried also to go out, because the Lord had struck him. Uzziah the king was a leper to the day of his death, and lived in a separate house, being a leper, for he was cut off from the house of the Lord, and Jotham his son was over the king's house, judging the people of the land. Now the rest of the acts of Uzziah, first and last, did Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, write. So Uzziah slept with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the field of burial, which belongs to the kings. For they said, He is a leper. And Jotham his son reigned in his place. Chapter 27. Jotham was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok. He did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, according to all that his father Uzziah had done. However, he didn't enter into the temple of the Lord. The people of the land were still corrupt. He built the upper gate of the house of the Lord, and on the wall of Ophel he built much. Moreover, he built cities in the hill country of Judah, and in the forest he built castles and towers. He fought also with the king of the children of Ammon, and prevailed against them. The children of Ammon gave him in the same year 100 talents of silver, and 10,000 measures of wheat, and 10,000 of barley. So much did the children of Ammon give to him in the second year also, and in the third. So Jotham became mighty, because he ordered his ways before the Lord his God. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham, and all his wars and his ways, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. Jotham slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David, and Ahaz his son reigned in his place. Chapter 28. Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, and he didn't do that which was right in the eyes of the Lord like David his father, but he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, and he made also molten images for the Baals. Moreover, he burned incense in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and burnt his children in the fire, according to the abominations of the nations whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. He sacrificed and burnt incense in the high places, and on the hills, and under every green tree. Therefore the Lord his God delivered him into the hand of the king of Syria, and they struck him, and carried away of his a great multitude of captives, and brought them to Damascus. He was also delivered into the hand of the king of Israel, who struck him with a great slaughter. For Pekah, the son of Remaliah, killed in Judah 120,000 in one day, all of them valiant men, because they had forsaken the Lord, the God of their fathers. Zichri, a mighty man of Ephraim, killed Maaseiah the king's son, and Azrikam the ruler of the house, and Elkanah who was next to the king. The children of Israel carried away captive of their brothers 200,000 women, sons, and daughters, and took also away much spoil from them, and brought the spoil to Samaria. But a prophet of the Lord was there, whose name was Oded, and he went out to meet the host that came to Samaria, and said to them, Behold, because the Lord, the God of your fathers, was angry with Judah, he has delivered them into your hand, and you have slain them in a rage which has reached up to heaven. Now you purpose to keep under the children of Judah and Jerusalem for bondservants and bondmaids to you. But aren't there even with you trespasses of your own against the Lord your God? Now hear me therefore, and send back the captives that you have taken of your brothers, for the fierce wrath of the Lord is on you. Then certain of the heads of the children of Ephraim, Azariah the son of Jehonan, Berechiah the son of Meshillemoth, and Jezekiah the son of Shallum, and Amasa the son of Hadlai, stood up against those who came from the war, and said to them, You shall not bring in the captives here, for you purpose that which will bring on us a trespass against the Lord, to add to our sins and to our trespass, for our trespass is great, and there is fierce wrath against Israel. So the armed men left the captives and the spoil before the princes and all the assembly. The men who have been mentioned by name rose up, and took the captives, and with the spoil clothed all who were naked among them, and arrayed them, and shod them, and gave them to eat and to drink, and anointed them, and carried all the feeble of them on donkeys, and brought them to Jericho, the city of palm trees, to their brothers. Then they returned to Samaria. At that time did King Ahaz send to the kings of Assyria to help him, for again the Edomites had come and struck Judah and carried away captives. The Philistines also had invaded the cities of the lowland and of the south of Judah, and had taken Bethshemesh, and Ajalon, and Gederoth, and Socoh with its towns, and Timnah with its towns, Gizmo also and its towns, and they lived there. For the Lord brought Judah low because of Ahaz king of Israel, for he had dealt wantonly in Judah, and trespassed severely against the Lord. Tilgath-Pilneser, king of Assyria, came to him and distressed him, but didn't strengthen him. For Ahaz took away a portion out of the house of the Lord, and out of the house of the kings and of the princes, and gave it to the king of Assyria, but it didn't help him. In the time of his distress did he trespass yet more against the Lord, this same King Ahaz. For he sacrificed to the gods of Damascus which struck him, and he said, Because the gods of the kings of Syria helped them, therefore I will sacrifice to them that they may help me. But they were the ruin of him and of all Israel. Ahaz gathered together the vessels of the house of God, and cut in pieces the vessels of the house of God, and shut up the doors of the house of the Lord. And he made him altars in every corner of Jerusalem. In every city of Judah he made high places to burn incense to other gods, and provoked to anger the Lord, the God of his fathers. Now the rest of his acts, and all his ways, first and last, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. Ahaz slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city, even in Jerusalem, for they didn't bring him into the tombs of the kings of Israel, and Hezekiah his son reigned in his place. Chapter 29. Hezekiah began to reign when he was 25 years old, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Abijah, the daughter of Zechariah. He did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, according to all that David his father had done. He, in the first year of his reign, in the first month, opened the doors of the house of the Lord and repaired them. He brought in the priests and the Levites, and gathered them together into the broad place on the east, and said to them, Hear me, you Levites. Now sanctify yourselves, and sanctify the house of the Lord, the God of your fathers, and carry forth the filthiness out of the holy place. For our fathers have trespassed, and have done that which is evil in the sight of the Lord our God, and have forsaken him, and have turned away their faces from the habitation of the Lord, and turned their backs. Also they have shut up the doors of the porch, and put out the lamps, and have not burned incense, nor offered burnt offerings in the holy place to the God of Israel. Therefore the wrath of the Lord was on Judah and Jerusalem, and he has delivered them to be tossed back and forth, to be an astonishment and a hissing, as you see with your eyes. For behold, our fathers have fallen by the sword, and our sons and our daughters and our wives are in captivity for this. Now it is in my heart to make a covenant with the Lord, the God of Israel, that his fierce anger may turn away from us. My sons, don't be negligent now, for the Lord has chosen you to stand before him, to minister to him, and that you should be his ministers and burn incense. Then the Levites arose, Mahath the son of Amasai, and Joel the son of Azariah, the sons of the Kohathites, and of the sons of Merari, Kish the son of Abdi, and Azariah the son of Jehalalel, and of the Gershonites, Joah the son of Zimmah, and Eden the son of Joah, and of the sons of Elizaphan, Shimri and Jeuel, and of the sons of Asaph, Zechariah and Mattaniah, and of the sons of Heman, Jehuel and Shimei, and of the sons of Jeduthun, Shemaiah and Uzziel. They gathered their brothers and sanctified themselves, and went in according to the commandment of the king by the words of the Lord, to cleanse the house of the Lord. The priest went into the inner part of the house of the Lord to cleanse it, and brought out all the uncleanness that they found in the temple of the Lord into the court of the house of the Lord. The Levites took it to carry it off to the brook Kidron. Now they began on the first day of the first month to sanctify, and on the 8th day of the month they came to the porch of the Lord, and they sanctified the house of the Lord in 8 days. And on the 16th day of the first month they made an end, Then they went in to Hezekiah the king within the palace, and said, We have cleansed all the house of the Lord, and the altar of burnt offering with all its vessels, and the table of showbread with all its vessels. Moreover, all the vessels which King Ahaz in his reign did cast away when he trespassed, have we prepared and sanctified, and behold, they are before the altar of the Lord. Then Hezekiah the king arose early, and gathered the princes of the city, and went up to the house of the Lord. They brought 7 bulls, and 7 rams, and 7 lambs, and 7 male goats, for a sin offering for the kingdom, and for the sanctuary, and for Judah. He commanded the priests, the sons of Aaron, to offer them on the altar of the Lord. So they killed the bulls, and the priest received the blood, and sprinkled it on the altar. And they killed the rams, and sprinkled the blood on the altar. They killed also the lambs, and sprinkled the blood on the altar. They brought near the male goats for the sin offering before the king in the assembly, and they laid their hands on them, and the priests killed them, and they made a sin offering with their blood on the altar, to make atonement for all Israel. For the king commanded that the burnt offering and that the sin offering should be made for all Israel. He set the Levites in the house of the Lord with cymbals, with psalteries, and with harps, according to the commandment of David, and of Gad the king's seer, and Nathan the prophet. For the commandment was of the Lord by his prophets. The Levites stood with the instruments of David, and the priest with the trumpets. Hezekiah commanded to offer the burnt offering on the altar. When the burnt offering began, the song of the Lord began also, and the trumpets, together with the instruments of David, king of Israel. All the assembly worshipped, and the singers sang, and the trumpeters sounded. All this continued until the burnt offering was finished. When they had made an end of offering, the king and all those who were present with him bowed themselves and worshipped. Moreover, Hezekiah the king and the princes commanded the Levites to sing praises to the Lord with the words of David and of Asaph the seer. They sang praises with gladness, and they bowed their heads and worshipped. Then Hezekiah answered, Now you have consecrated yourselves to the Lord. Come near and bring sacrifices and thank offerings into the house of the Lord. The assembly brought in sacrifices and thank offerings, and as many as were of a willing heart brought burnt offerings. The number of burnt offerings which the assembly brought was 70 bulls, 100 rams, and 200 lambs. All these were for a burnt offering to the Lord. The consecrated things were 600 oxen and 3,000 sheep. But the priests were too few, so that they could not flay all the burnt offerings. Therefore their brothers the Levites helped them until the work was ended, until the priests had sanctified themselves. For the Levites were more upright in heart to sanctify themselves than the priest. Also the burnt offerings were in abundance, with the fat of the peace offerings, and with the drink offerings for every burnt offering. So the service of the house of the Lord was set in order. Hezekiah rejoiced, and all the people, because of that which God had prepared for the people, for the thing was done suddenly. Chapter 30. Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah, and wrote letters also to Ephraim and Manasseh, that they should come to the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, to keep the Passover to the Lord, the God of Israel. For the king had taken counsel, and his princes, and all the assembly in Jerusalem, to keep the Passover in the 2nd month. For they could not keep it at that time, because the priests had not sanctified themselves in sufficient numbers, neither had the people gathered themselves together to Jerusalem. The thing was right in the eyes of the king and of all the assembly. So they established a decree to make proclamation throughout all Israel, from Beersheba even to Dan, that they should come to keep the Passover to the Lord, the God of Israel, at Jerusalem. For they had not kept it in great numbers, in such sort as it is written. So the post went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Israel and Judah, and according to the commandment of the king, saying, You, children of Israel, turn again to the Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, that he may return to the remnant that has escaped of you out of the hand of the kings of Assyria. Don't be like your fathers, and like your brothers, who trespassed against the Lord, the God of their fathers, so that he gave them up to desolation, as you see. Now don't you be stiff-necked, as your fathers were, But yield yourselves to the Lord, and enter into his sanctuary which he has sanctified forever, and serve the Lord your God, that his fierce anger may turn away from you. For if you turn again to the Lord, your brothers and your children shall find compassion before those who led them captive, and shall come again into this land. For the Lord your God is gracious and merciful, and will not turn away his face from you, if you return to him. So the post passed from city to city, through the country of Ephraim and Manasseh, even to Zebulun, but they ridiculed them and mocked them. Nevertheless, certain men of Asher and Manasseh and of Zebulun humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem. Also on Judah came the hand of God to give them one heart, to do the commandment of the king and of the princes by the word of the Lord. There assembled at Jerusalem much people to keep the feast of unleavened bread in the 2nd month, a very great assembly. They arose and took away the altars that were in Jerusalem, and all the altars for incense they took away, and cast them into the brook Kidron. Then they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the 2nd month, and the priests and the Levites were ashamed, and sanctified themselves, and brought burnt offerings into the house of the Lord. They stood in their place after their order, according to the law of Moses, the man of God. The priests sprinkled blood which they received of the hand of the Levites. For there were many in the assembly who had not sanctified themselves. Therefore the Levites had the charge of killing the Passovers for everyone who was not clean, to sanctify them to the Lord. For a multitude of the people, even many of Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar and Zebulun, had not cleansed themselves. Yet did they eat the Passover otherwise than it is written. For Hezekiah had prayed for them, saying, The good Lord pardon everyone who sets his heart to seek God, the Lord, the God of his fathers, though not cleansed according to the purification of the sanctuary. The Lord listened to Hezekiah and healed the people. The children of Israel who were present at Jerusalem kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days with great gladness, and the Levites and the priests praised the Lord day by day, singing with loud instruments to the Lord. Hezekiah spoke comfortably to all the Levites who had good understanding in the service of the Lord. So they ate throughout the feast for 7 days, offering sacrifices of peace offerings, and making confession to the Lord, the God of their fathers. The whole assembly took counsel to keep other 7 days, and they kept other 7 days with gladness. For Hezekiah, king of Judah, did give to the assembly for offerings 1,000 bulls and 7,000 sheep, and the princes gave to the assembly 1,000 bulls and 10,000 sheep, and a great number of priests sanctified themselves. All the assembly of Judah, with the priests and the Levites, and all the assembly who came out of Israel, and the foreigners who came out of the land of Israel and who lived in Judah, rejoiced. So there was great joy in Jerusalem, for since the time of Solomon the son of David, king of Israel, there was not the like in Jerusalem. Then the priests, the Levites, arose and blessed the people, and their voice was heard, and their prayer came up to his holy habitation, even to heaven.